right. Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us for our program, Michigan's Winter Playground with Dianna Stampfler. This program was made possible by the Friends of the Clinton-Macomb Public Library. Tonight's program is a webinar format, so your cameras and mics are off, but you're still welcome to use the chat or Q&A features to ask questions. We'll wait to answer those questions until the end of the talk, unless sometimes Dianna will throw out a question in the middle of the talk, in which case feel free to answer right away. And we'll address those right away. Our presenter tonight, of course, is Dianna Stampfler. Dianna has been entertaining audiences about Michigan's historic lighthouses, agricultural and foodie history, unique treasures, covered bridges, and vintage postcards for nearly 20 years. First as the marketing director for the West Michigan Tourist Association, and now through Promote Michigan, the company she launched in 2004. Dianna has authored the book Michigan's Haunted Lighthouses, and she's written for Michigan Blue Magazine, Pure Michigan Travel Ideas, Michigan Home and Lifestyle, Michigan Wine Country, and the Lake Michigan Circle Tour Guide, just to name a few. Thank you so much, Dianna, for joining us, and I'll turn the screen over to you.
Great, thank you. Well, I know this is a great program, especially as we are getting into the depths of the winter season, winter officially arriving here next week. And I live in Gaylord, so we actually are known as the snow belt. We get actually more snow than any other city traditionally in the lower peninsula. So while I was downstate this past weekend and noticed a lot of green grass, here at my house, we have had almost 2.5 feet of snow already this winter. So what my question is to everybody before we get started, and you can add this in the chat or the Q&A if you so desire, is how many of you are fans of winter? How many of you love the snowy season here in the state of Michigan? Now, it's kind of a trick question because even I myself never really cared much for winter, yet here we are living in the state of Michigan where we are a four-season destination. It's really, I think, important when you live here in Michigan to know all the great things that we have available for you to enjoy in the winter season. So hopefully you can get some ideas at the end of this during this presentation of things that you might want to try and learn in terms of enjoying winter in Michigan. So kind of funny because, you know, this is what most people think of when they think of winter in Michigan. It's time to hibernate. And I'm not going to lie, I love my cozy days on the couch when it's snowing outside and I don't have to go out and shovel snow or go to the store. But in recent years, the memes with Michigan winter have really taken over social media. And this is, you know, a lot of people feel this is their mentality about Michigan. You know, it's a snowstorm to some people, but here in Michigan, we just call it Tuesday. Or, you know, these big blizzards hit certain areas where they aren't really prepared for the winter. But meanwhile, in Michigan, it's just another normal day for us. And I think that we've developed a certain level of resiliency here in the state of Michigan. And that is, you know, I think a real testament to those of us who have lived our whole lives here. So, but it's actually kind of funny. If you go back and look at the history of winters in Michigan and we look outside to what we have in more recent years, even when we get these polar vortexes or whatever, the snow bombs, I think is what they called it this past weekend that went through the Upper Peninsula, we really don't get the snowstorms like they did way back in the day. Michigan has had several well-known blizzard years. One of the first recorded was in 1913. We also had big snowstorms in 1923, in the 1937-38 winter, 1967. 1978 and 1999, and you look at, you know, how much snow was accumulating in the blizzards that ripped through. This one from 1923, reporting the worst snow storm in May in the Upper Peninsula since 1895. it's interesting back in those early blizzard days, these are trucks that they would haul the snow out with because the snowfall accumulation was so significant. I don't know if you've ever noticed pictures from the Upper Peninsula, and they show sometimes these houses that have doors on the second level. And a lot of that was because they needed to be able to get out of the house in the winter because the snow was so deep that the front doors were blocked. Here's a storm that blew through the UP in Marquette in 1938, and it caused a major fire in downtown. And they were predicting more snow, colder temperatures, and the plows that were getting stuck in the snowbanks. Again, these photos are from the Upper Peninsula, but look at how high the snowdrifts were up to the top of the power lines. Downtown areas, the snow was pushed up and accumulating in the snowbanks up over the sidewalks and up over the awnings of some of these buildings. That bottom lower right photo is a little hard to see with the kid and his dad in front of the car, but snow is a good 2 feet above that dad's head. So these storms really just ripped through Michigan, and while we think we get these snowstorms today, they aren't quite the significance that they were back in the 60s and 70s, even when the snowbanks were taller than the snowplows themselves. It was interesting. I know that in 2013 and 14 was when we had I think some of our biggest snowfalls, but the record snowfall for the state of Michigan was that blizzard of 78, 79, when they had almost 400 inches of snow during the course of the winter up in the Upper Peninsula, up in the Keweenaw, where they certainly know how to enjoy their winter season there as well. Now, that snowstorm also dumped significantly all over the state of Michigan. Here you can see anywhere from 11, 12, 16, 17 inches. Many of those even in the southwest and southeast part of the state of Michigan as well. And this was the year, one of the 25 heaviest snowstorms in the state's history. So when I chose to move, I was actually born and raised down by Kalamazoo. And when I chose to move up north, I chose the winter of 2013-14 to do that. And I moved up to the Lake Ann area, and we had major snowfall that year. If you recall, that was the year that there were all the ice caves on Lake Michigan, and there was all of the record snowfall here. We were seeing some parts of the Keweenaw in 2013-14, over 300 inches of snow, 341 showing up, not quite those record years from the 60s, but certainly significant snowfall. And then we saw that again in 2016 and 17. So this is from that same year, 13-14. This is the year I moved north. And if you'll notice that pink area where they had 192 plus inches up in the mostly in the Leelanau Peninsula, but a little bit of Benzie and just a tiny bit of Grand Traverse County. Well, I lived right at that intersection where those three counties converged. And so my first winter up north was during this big blizzard. And we got the U-Haul stuck in the driveway. But it was an interesting time. That was, again, the year that it froze, the Great Lakes froze over almost all the way, which was really significant, especially when you look at these pictures from space. Before I moved in March, and in February, we went over to South Haven, which is the nearest Michigan town from where I was living near Kalamazoo. And this is what it looked like. It really was like walking on another planet. It was frozen as almost all the way across to Wisconsin. It was snow and ice as far as you could see. And people were actually walking out past the lighthouse by almost a mile and looking back to shore. And when we were there were so many people just wandering around. Like I said, it was so bizarre, almost like you were on another planet as you got a chance to see all this covered in snow and ice. Now, one of my dearest friends who passed away several years ago said that there's no such thing as bad weather in Michigan. There's just bad clothing choices. So, as you head out to enjoy winter in Michigan, you want to dress the part, of course. And interestingly enough, the brands that are shown here are all Michigan made companies. And so, Carhartt was formed down in Dearborn. They are over 100 years old. The long johns, those red flannel long johns, those were made in Cedar Springs, Michigan. And in the 1930s, when the big stores in New York had run out of them during that blizzard of the late 30s, well, we had plenty of red flannels here in the state of Michigan to keep everybody warm. The little peanut there, that is my granddaughter Mayla sporting her very first Stormy Cromer hat. Stormy Cromer was founded in 1903 in the Upper Peninsula, and they still are making hats as well as jackets, vests, blankets, and all kinds of other things to keep people warm during the winter. One of the neatest companies out there is called Baba Zuzu, and they make mittens from old sweaters, and there are no two pairs exactly the same. They're based in Leelanau County, and these are some of the warmest mittens that you will ever find. And it's great because they're repurposing things like these sweaters and old blankets. And then Moose Jaw is another company that is based in Michigan. So you can stay warm, you can enjoy winter in Michigan, and you can do it while supporting Michigan-made companies as well. Now, with our winter sports, we also have a lot of companies that are making things to help when we don't always have all of the snow. And we actually have a company called Snow Machines Inc., and they are based in Midland, Michigan, so over near the Thumb. And they are a snow gun manufacturer. And so when we have great snowfall, for natural snow, of course, that is ideal. But many of our ski resorts sometimes have rough years where they don't have natural snow. And so they have to use these snow guns that are hooked up to hoses. And when the temperature gets below 19 degrees, they can make man-made snow for the slopes. And so this company, which has many of the snow guns operating around the state of Michigan, is also a Michigan company. And they actually sent some of these snow guns to the previous Winter Olympics to make sure that they had snow for the Winter Games over there. So ideally, winter snow is, like I said, under 20 degrees in order for these snow guns to really do their best work. Now, Michigan is home to over 40 different ski resorts around the state. Most of them, ironically, up here near where I live in northern Michigan. But we have these almost 49 ski resorts. There are over 240 ski lifts, about 1,000 different runs, more than 80 terrain parks, and hundreds of kilometers of groomed cross-country trails, as well as snowshoe trails and fat tire biking, which is pretty big. We'll look at that again coming up here in a little bit. But we have these ski resorts all throughout the Upper Peninsula and mostly in the northern part of the Lower Peninsula. And we're one of the top 5 states actually in the country for the number of ski resorts and the number of runs, which is really good considering our location in the northern Great Lakes. We have very picturesque ski resorts around the state. And we have these black diamond runs, which are pretty intense runs, things that you would expect to find out in some of the areas in Colorado and Utah and such. One of our oldest ski resorts is Cabrafee Peaks, and they're located in Cadillac, and they were founded in 1937. This photo here is from Shush Mountain. That's at Shaney Creek Resort. And they opened up their seasons for the very first time on December 23rd of 1967. And just take a look at the views. Not only do you get these great winter conditions, but you get the beautiful views as well. The highest ski resort in Michigan is in Iron River, which is located in the Upper Peninsula. and it has a peak of 565 meters. So quite a testament to the state. And Mount Bohemia has the longest vertical in the Midwest. So this is the path actually down the slope at over 900 feet. And then you can see here, they say that the black diamond runs are the toughest runs out there. And look at this one. This is a triple black diamond run. Interestingly enough, when my son was growing up, he was about 15, I think. We were at an event at Crystal Mountain Resort and at the homestead in Glen Arbor. And he took his very first ski lesson at the homestead, was kind of hanging out on the bunny runs. And then by the second day, he was hitting black diamond runs at Crystal Mountain. So definitely he has more gumption than I do, because I get a little nervous on even the chair lifts in that area. Now, this is more my speed. If you're not up for hitting the fast pace of going down the slopes, whether on skis or on a snowboard, you can take Groomer Rides. And these are an opportunity for you to go out with the groomer who is putting down the tracks for the ski hills. And Boyne Highlands and Boyne Mountain, which are Boyne Mountain is in Boyne Falls, just south of Petoskey. Boyne Highlands, which has been actually just rebranded as the Highlands of Harbor Springs. These are opportunities that they have there, and sometimes they'll even let you they'll kind of bring a carriage behind the groomer and take you down the hill at night, just as another type of experience, one that you don't need any special skill sets for. For those who are a little more daring, I would like to actually watch this, but I would certainly never participate in the Pine Mountain Jump. This is one of the highest artificially created ski jumps in the world. It's located in Iron Mountain, Michigan, and is up in the Upper Peninsula. It was first opened in 1937. And can you imagine, it is known throughout the world as one of the best jumping hills, but to take flight off of this, much like the Olympic jumpers do, but to go out there and kind of watch all of that. And if you go on YouTube, or you can search and find videos of people actually doing this jumping. And that's what it looks like if you're coming from the other angle. I am a little bit of a chicken, so I think this is one that I would definitely just want to be more of a spectator at. You get to the Upper Peninsula, you also want to stop and check out the U.S. Ski and Snowboard Hall of Fame and Museum. And this is a great museum that talks all about the ski industry. This is celebrating the birthplace of organized skiing. It's located in Ishpeming in the Upper Peninsula, and it talks about the earliest forms of skiing and cross-country skiing and snowshoeing, and also celebrates the manufacturing that has been contributing to such as the groomers to keep the skiing industry alive. I love the photo on the bottom of all of the men and ladies out there dressed up and having their snowshoes to go out and do their treks through the wooded, snowy areas of the Upper Peninsula. In recent years, Michigan has also had several companies that have stepped up and started manufacturing skis and snowboards to cater to the younger generation. And this is Shaggy's Copper Country Skis. This is located in Boyne City, so not very far from where I am at. And they haven't been around for very long, but they have really created some unique ski options, and you can go in and work with them, design skis specifically for you. It will be the length and the weight that you need, but then also allowing you to create a custom imprint or decoration on the skis. Now, Marhar Snowboards does the same thing. And they have they're based in Grand Rapids, and they've worked with some major manufacturers. If you're familiar with the McClure's Pickles out of Detroit, they actually have a McClure's Pickle snowboard that I've seen. This one is the denim one, and they, again, are really trying to create custom boards and skis for people who want to get out there and who are really dedicated to the sport. This is a different type of skiing. This is the Marquette Backcountry skis, and they're based in the Upper Peninsula. And this is kind of a rugged terrain ski. It's a Nordic type ski. You can see how the back of the boot is not actually attached to this to the ski itself. So it creates a really unique backcountry experience. If you're familiar with telemark skiing, which is a downhill ski that you have where the back comes up as well, it's similar to that, but you can allows you to go and do some trekking and then kind of ski back through the woods. Again, this is something for some of you who are maybe a little more experienced in the ski option. Me, myself, I am much more at home in the cross-country skis. We have just thousands of kilometers of trails, not only at the resorts in Michigan, but also through the Department of Natural Resources and through county parks. Where I just moved to in Gaylord, we have 20 acres. So I think I might go out and try to do some cross-country skiing through there. If you're new to this sport, you'll want to maybe look for some of the resorts that actually have tracks in the snow where they groom them. And it's a little easier because you just kind of have to keep your skis, your cross-country skis in those tracks as you scoot along. But this is a cool experience. Several of the resorts actually offer a nighttime cross-country skiing, and they light the trail with candles. And it's really a unique and fun experience. This is the Enchanted Trail. This is at Boyne Highlands in Harbor Springs. We did this a couple of years ago, and they actually light up this trail, goes through the woods with Christmas lights, and you can either use snowshoes or you can hike. And when you get out to the center of their area, they have a bonfire going, and they have hot chocolate, and it's a really neat little experience. We really enjoyed that, and you're seeing more of these options. They're more family friendly for you to go out there and for the kids to kind of just see what's going on. Now, this is more my speed. These three activities are top of my list. So if you like to eat and you like to drink and you like to be out in the snow, you can check out different types of recreational activities. This is the Winter Wine Walk. This is at Otsego Resort in Gaylord. We're actually doing this on New Year's Day, and you go out and you stop. You kind of either walk or you can snowshoe, and often they'll allow you to cross-country ski as well. And when you go out on the course, you start at the historic river cabin and you go out to the Beaver Dam, and there's a bonfire, but along the way, there are 3 different wine tasting stations paired with little small bites. So you get a chance to walk and eat and have a little drink. Some make the Stein snowshoe supper. That is held at Boyne Mountain in Boyne Falls. And it's very similar. They take you on a chairlift to the top of the hill. You go in and get a quick little beverage. You get your snowshoes on and you snowshoe down the hill. And then when you get done, they have a dinner for you. And I'll be doing this coming up on January 8th. And I just got the menu. So we're doing a prime rib and shrimp menu, but we did it a couple of years ago, and it was a fondue dinner. So that was kind of neat. Skiable Feast, a winter gourmet adventure. This is held at Otsego Club, which is also in Gaylord. And this is also very similar, where you either have cross-country skis, snowshoes, or you walk out. And there are 3 or 4 different food and beverage stations along the way. We did this a couple of years ago as well. So if you're more into the experience and just doing a little bit of walking and having some bites and drinks along the way, these activities, and these are all offered this winter at these various resorts. Snowshoeing, I think, was the one sport that really got me into liking winter. I was much more of the mindset that, the only thing I did in winter was having to shovel my sidewalk or my driveway. And it really wasn't an enjoyable experience. And I remember going to an event, a snowshoe event, in the Sleeping Bear Dunes National Lakeshore. And it was a guided hike out. And I just absolutely loved it. I really enjoyed being out there in the snowshoes. It's just like walking in big clown shoes if you haven't had a chance to before. But basically, if you can walk, you can probably snowshoe. Now, it is a little nicer when you're getting out. Like, these are not such groomed trails. Snowshoes were really meant to go on top of the snow, opposed to groomed trails. So what we have found is when we do these guided events is sometimes we'll just step a foot or so off the trail and just walk in the fresh powder that goes along that area. But this is Iverson's Snowshoes, and they are a company that is based in the Upper Peninsula, and they are actually world renowned for their basically like artwork, these beautiful handmade snowshoes. The company was founded in 1954, and they make them with white ash, and they have rawhide and pure copper hardware, as you would expect out of the Upper Peninsula. But these are much more traditional snowshoes, as opposed to many of the fiberglass ones that are available out there now. So I actually have a vintage pair of these hanging on the wall, so they make great decorations as well. This is also a fun thing that is made in Michigan. This is a Snurfer, and a Snurfer is actually the early snowboards. And they were manufactured starting in the 1960s in Muskegon, Michigan. Muskegon actually has a very significant manufacturing history. This is where the Brunswick company was. So they made bowling balls, bowling pins, bowling lanes, and things like that. But the Snurfer was created by a man by the name of Sherman Poppins. And he basically made this as something for his kids, his daughters, to get out of the house during Christmas vacation. Even back then, I mean, they didn't have their phones or computers, but apparently they didn't want to go outside. And so he created the Snurfer to get them outside to enjoy the winter and to help get them out on the slopes. It's interesting, if you look at the cost of these here, they were selling for about $20 with postage and handling. Interestingly, if you try to find these on eBay now, they are going for almost $100 or more if they're in prime condition. This on the right is actually a sculpture that was made and put up in Muskegon to honor Mr. Poppins and his Snurfer legacy. And last year, actually, they did a documentary. This company has been acquired by another one, and they partnered with New Holland Brewing out of Holland and Grand Rapids, and they created a documentary all about the history of the Snurfer. So I actually have a friend who has a vacation home in Empire, and he has a collection of these, including that brown one that's at the bottom of the page. These are all photos from the Kalamazoo Sled Company, just a little bit more history about winter recreational activities and manufacturers. Champion F56 sled, and I have one very similar to that. That was my dad's. It's the decoration now on the porch for the holidays. But they made the traditional wooden sleds there. You could see them all lined up inside their warehouse. And they started back actually in the 1870s. And they were making components for buggies until 1894. And then shortly after that, they started creating the early sleds. Their flying discs, of course, became incredibly popular. And they were the early leaders in some of the manufacturing of these types of equipment. So I grew up, as I said, down in the Kalamazoo area, and this is a place that I spent a lot of time as a kid. This is Echo Valley Winter Sports Park, and this is located in Kalamazoo, and it has been around since the 1960s. This has just a bunch of activities, but they're noted for their toboggan run. And these toboggan runs, they're about 3/4 of a mile, and you go up to 60 miles an hour. So you basically get on a toboggan that holds, I think, 5 or 6 people, and you start at the top of the hill and you just zoom down. And then, well, when we were kids, we had to haul the sleds back up there. I think they have a pulley system for that now. But you can see the bridge that goes across the lanes, and that's for folks who want to just sit and watch everybody do the tobogganing. They have a tubing hill now, and of course, you can see there that they have an ice skating hill as well. But this is, they claim this is a mile a minute thrills as you go down there. When we were kids, it was always the prime spot to sit in the back of the sled and face backwards. So you had your back against the person in front of you. So you went down the hill backwards. I don't know if I have the energy to do that these days, but this is a snow coaster. So people are getting creative with all of the snow that is out there. And we're starting to see them building up on the snow hills. Instead of just the fluffy snow, they're actually grooming them. You can see the corduroy in the, which is what they call the ribbons in the snow that they create there. And so snow coasting is another big activity as well. If you are so inclined, I invite you to go to Muskegon, to the Muskegon Winter Sports Park. And there they have a luge track. And this is very similar to the luge runs that you will see in the Olympics. And they have 2 different tracks. They have their Olympic one, and actually some of the Olympians train on these tracks. There's another one in the Upper Peninsula as well. But as the general public, you can go there, and you basically grab this sled, and you grab a helmet and you climb up a set of stairs, and then they put you at the top of the run. You're about 3/4 of the way down. So you're not even at the halfway point. And then they gear you all up and they let you go, and you can get up to about 35 miles an hour going down this track. Few words of advice: wear an old coat and old snow pants if you're going to wear them, because as you're coming around these curves, you kind of come up on the sides of them, and it is very common for your arms to rub against the wood on the side of the track. They tell you to hold your hands a certain way so that your elbows are in, because you could, if you had your elbows bent out at all, you could get injured. But I didn't listen so well the first time I went, and I actually rubbed my forearms against the wood as I was going down both sides, and destroyed my Columbia coat. It burned holes in it. But it is a pretty fun experience. I haven't been there in a while, so I'm not sure if they still have it, but they used to have a sled called the Silver Bullet, and it was bigger and it went faster, but I never used it because it weighed like 15 pounds more than the other sleds. The other sleds were heavy enough to carry up to the top. Now, if you go to the Muskegon Winter Sports Park website, they have a video on there that will show you what this is like. They have somebody with a GoPro go down the track, and you can see it firsthand, and how fast that happens to take you. Now, the track itself was built thanks to Mark Vermette. He was a Muskegon resident, and he joined the coaching staff there in 2010. He was a three-time world champion. He was a 1998 Olympic bronze medalist in luge. He was a 2002 Olympic silver medalist in the luge, a 5-time Olympian competing for the United States in the luge competition. And he trained there, but he also was instrumental in building it and helping to maintain that over the years. Now, here's a photo of me and a couple of my girlfriends. We competed several years ago in what is called the Mad Media Luge Competition. And they bring travel writers in, and you are assigned a team, and you compete in these little mini Olympics. And at the end of the day, we actually were presented with the bronze medal. So I actually have my bronze medal hanging on the wall here in my office. But it was quite an experience. And that's actually the jacket that I burned the hole in. You can kind of see on that left arm in the black part of it where it looks to be a little bit torn. Kind of as a souvenir for a while, because I thought it was like a really cool testament to my bronze medal. Now at the Muskegon Winter Sports Park, they also have a lot of other activities. They have skating rinks, they have hockey, they have cross-country skiing, including a lighted trail that goes through the woods. And then they have this this is a skating trail that goes through the woods. And so I think it goes about a half a mile in through there, and they light it up in the winter. So instead of just ice skating on a round or square rink, you can go on this this trail that meanders through the woods there. And as you can see, the person in the front, they also have the little walkers that you can use if you're not terribly steady on your skates. This is a photo of me when I went out in 2007, and I wanted to try something new, so I decided to go kayaking in the winter on the Platte River, which is in the Sleeping Bear Dunes National Lakeshore. It was actually my very first time in a kayak. And it was a beautiful May day, how about July? Yeah, let's try this again. January day, January 10th. And it was a beautiful sunny day. As you can see there, the temperatures were in the low to mid 30s. And we were coming through the Platte River, and our exit point was right near the Cherry Bowl Drive-In, if anybody's familiar with where that is at. So we had about a 2-hour paddle on the river, and it was going pretty well until about halfway through. And my friend who was with me had stopped to take pictures of these icicles that were forming on the branches as they were dipping in and out of the river. Well, having never been on a river or kayaking before and not really knowing navigation, I got caught up in an area where there was some downed trees. And the kayak, instead of going nose first through the river, heads over to where this one tree was down because of the flow, and it brought the kayak parallel to this downed tree. And thankfully, I figured out pretty quickly what was about to happen and slipped myself out of the kayak before it went under the tree and popped out a few yards down the river past. Now, here I am standing in the river, chest deep in water in January, in my snow boots, snow pants, and all that. I had to chase after the kayak. So I actually threw my paddle up on the shore, took a few steps, and thankfully there was another tree that kept the kayak from going too far away. And I grabbed the kayak and I'm holding onto it as it's filling with water, screaming at the top of my lungs for my friend to catch up to help me pull the kayak up onto shore and empty it out, which we did. There I am standing on the shore of the Platte River, soaked to the bone. And we spent a few minutes there and then figured out, well, we have to keep going because the car is still a mile or so down the river. And needless to say, we kayaked a little faster for the second half of the trip. And this photo was taken actually right when we got back, before we got out of the river. And we stood there and my car was at the takeoff point. Realized that all of my dry clothes were in the car at the put-in point. So it became another interesting thing as I stripped down to the lowest possible level that was acceptable and had to go to a Dollar General or a Family Dollar in my sock feet and in my long johns and buy new warm clothes And then we went out and had coffee and soup and stuff and warmed up. And it was funny because I had people say to me, well, why on earth would you go kayaking in January? And I said, well, I didn't lose any fingers or toes and I didn't drown. And it's kind of funny to think about the whole thing now. And it was a unique experience. And now I have a really cool story to tell everybody, right? Well, if you want to do something a little less crazy, you can take a guided rafting trip in several places in northern Michigan. That's my good friend Kaz leading this tour. This is on the Sturgeon River. And they have a couple companies. We did this a couple of years ago. We went on the Sturgeon River with about 6 people, and they have experienced guides who will take you, and you do help steer the raft as you go through, but they do all of the directional points of that. So you don't necessarily have to worry about how to steer, but you just have to help kind of navigate as you go through the river. And they do look really cold. And it is a little chilly. The best thing I can tell you is to check on layers and wear thick socks, because the bottom of that raft, of course, is in the river and your feet are touching the bottom, and that's kind of be interested if you want to put in the chat if you have ever been dog sledding. It's a kind of a neat experience. And we have several companies in Michigan that offer this. These are, again, in the Upper Peninsula, where you can sign up and you can do 2 or 3 hours. You can do overnight camping trips with them. Several of the resorts in the lower part of the Lower Peninsula also offer them. I remember taking a trip, I want to say it was either at Boyne Highlands or Boyne Mountain, again with my kids. And they took us and they used dog sled over trails that are on the golf course. So of course the golf course has lots of varying terrain. You're going up and down and around curves with these dogs. And it was really kind of a fun experience. And my son, I remember he was about 10, and 1 or 2 of the dogs that were running with us that day were actually competing in the Iditarod. And there was a website that you could go to, and you could look up that dog's name and you could track how it was doing when the Iditarod went on later that winter. So kind of like we have companies in Michigan that make snowboards and skis and snowshoes and snurfers. We also have a company in Michigan that's called the Risden Company, and they're in Langsburg near Lansing, and they make sleds for dog sledding. And again, much like the Iverson snowshoes, they're like pieces of artwork, I think. And so they're not only functional, but they're pretty to look at as you use them as well. Have you ever heard of Skijori? Well, this is a combination. It's kind of like dog sledding meets skiing. And this is a winter sport where the person on skis is pulled by a dog, or it could be a horse, or even a motorized vehicle like a snowmobile. And it is has Norwegian heritage to it. And we have seen some places in Michigan where those that are looking for something different might want to give Skijori. Now back to something a little bit more my pace. Horse-drawn carriage rides. We have these offered at several of the resorts. I know Treetops does this. Over at Thunder Bay Resort, which is in Hillman, which is near between Gaylord and Alpena, their resort, they will take these out and they do dinners out in their cabin. They also do guided elk viewing tours. Those are really popular in the fall season, but they do offer them in the winter as well. And this is, again, a really good family-friendly activity, or one that's suited for folks who have limited capabilities in terms of the recreation, or maybe are a little less coordinated, people like myself. This is Fat tire biking. And this is probably the newest craze. I actually thought it would just be a really quick little fad of activity about 7 years ago when it was introduced, but it is still incredibly popular. So these bikes, as you can see, have a much fatter tire to them. And the resorts and some of the communities have established trails, groomed trails where you can take these, and sometimes they're out in the open, and sometimes they travel through the woods, and sometimes they're smooth, and sometimes they're more like a mountain biking experience. And so this has really taken off, and now they're starting to actually have fat tire e-bikes. So it's a little less work, which I'm all for, a little less work. Winter camping, another activity for those hardy souls. And we have several campgrounds through the Department of Natural Resources that offer and are open for winter camping. Now, this is one that you definitely want to be experienced at, be well prepared for, and go with a group, and perhaps somebody that is even more experienced at winter camping. But it's a very serene activity. Of course, being out there in nature in the dead quiet of winter is quite an enjoyable experience for those who do it. Myself, I would prefer to do winter camping in a yurt. And we have several state parks in Michigan that also have yurts that are available throughout the winter months as well. There was a place in the UP in Christmas in the UP that actually offered it, called Paddler's Village, and unfortunately they've stopped offering it in the winter, but we did that and found it quite enjoyable. And you bring in all your gear. They have the beds there, but you bring your sleeping bags. They often have a wood burning fireplace. Ours that we stayed in had it did have some power, and we had a small heater that was in there. But here's a tip for you: if you're going to do the yurts, invest in a really good sleeping bag, and also take flannel sheets with you, flannel sheets, flannel pillowcases, because we had that with down comforters and down sleeping bags. And even though the temperature in the yurt got down to about 52 at night, we stayed toasty warm. Michigan is one of the top states in the country for snowmobiling. We have more than 6,500 groomed snowmobiling trails, and one of the most extensive interconnected snowmobile trail systems in the country. And this is a big thing, particularly around where I live. In fact, the snowmobiles have been out in force this year because we've had significant snowfall. Michigan is home to about 280, maybe 290,000 registered snowmobilers. And it really contributes a lot to the economic impact, as does winter activities in general for the state of Michigan. This is the tree trail, the Christmas tree trail. Again, this is for folks who are a little more experienced, but this is a route that goes from St. Ignace all the way to Mackinac Island. And once the Straits of Mackinac freeze up, which is late January, the locals up there, they go and test to make sure that the ice is solid. And then they line the safe passage between the mainland and the island with old Christmas trees. And so folks that want to ride their snowmobiles can ride out along this area and know that it is safe. And sometimes in later season, the ice will start to crack and they'll put up little bridges. But there's some really, if you're interested in seeing this firsthand, there's some really interesting YouTube videos about people who are taking their sleds across the Straits of Mackinac. And when you get to Mackinac Island, it's interesting. They have a year-round population. There's a community there. There's a school. And for an island that doesn't allow motorized vehicles, meaning, you know, if you aren't familiar, you can't take a car to Mackinac. And there are like 3 vehicles, maybe 4 on the whole island, a police car, an ambulance, and a fire truck, I think, or some combination of those. But they welcome the snowmobiles in the winter. And by this time, a lot of the horses are gone, so it's probably not scaring the horses so much. But you ride the snowmobiles to school, and there are trails all over the island. And here you can even ride into the handful of stores and restaurants that are open during the winter season. I've never been to Mackinac in winter, but this is in the top 5 of my my bucket list to get to Mackinac Island during the winter months. Now, also in the Upper Peninsula, in Nobbin is the Snowmobile Museum. And we did get up here a year or 2 ago, and it's right on US 2. So if you're traveling west out of St. Ignace, heading in, you'll see it right on the main road there in Nobbin. And you can go through, and they have hundreds of snowmobiles inside. And many of them, I was surprised when we went through, many of them were manufactured in Michigan, and a handful of them weren't in mass production or anything. They were just sleds that people modified or made themselves in order to get them around in the UP. Anybody up for some ice climbing? This is the Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore. Now, please make note of the 2 people on the left-hand side on that giant waterfall that is frozen over. This is regarded by ice climbers as one of the premier ice climbing destinations in the country. I'm going to say no thanks right now to this. You have to be serious about your rock climbing. But if you go to certain places, some of the falls, you can actually hike out to and walk in and behind them. We went out last winter to the Ebb and Ice Caves, which was really kind of cool. So it is a pretty lengthy hike out. It can be slippery. You'll want to get what's called clamp-ons, which are these spikes that you can put on your boot to help you when you're out there on the ice. But it is pretty spectacular to be able to climb in and out and around those ice sculptures. Now back in, I think it was 2014-15, when I showed the pictures earlier about that winter that things just froze up all over, and the Great Lakes were frozen most of the way across. We had ice caves that were showing up in certain areas. These photos were all taken by Ken Scott up in like the Sleeping Bear Dunes in the Leelanau area. And they had thousands of people, not just from Michigan. People came from all over the Midwest to drive up to the Leelanau area to see these ice caves. Unfortunately, I did not get a chance to see them firsthand. But thankfully, Ken did this beautiful book, Ice Caves of Leelanau, which has all of the photographs that he took during that event. Ice fishing in general, a big thing here, of course, in the Great Lakes state, and ice fishing is part of that. Never quite understood the enjoyment of sitting on a block of ice for fish, but for those who enjoy ice fishing, it is a pretty big deal here in Michigan. And typically around Valentine's weekend, or maybe it's the weekend after, they do Michigan's Free Fishing Weekend. They do one in over Father's Day weekend in June as well. But you don't have to pay fishing licenses. So if you want to go out, and it's a great activity to get the kids enjoying, and there are certain areas that are more popular than others. In Houghton Lake, they host Uptown, which is their big ice fishing festival. Winter fly fishing is also a big deal. Pa's guy that was running the rafting trip that I showed earlier, he is a fly fishing guide and noted guide in Michigan. So he takes people out for that regularly. We have a pretty significant group of communities that does ice boating. So you'll see that on Round Lake in Charlevoix. You'll see that down in the Elk Rapids area. And these are folks that get on these sailboats as such, and they just go across the ice as fast as can be in these competitions. Now, this is Surfer Dan. He's a little bit of an extremist as well. He is based in Mackinac City. He is a surfer and he surfs year round, but he finds particular enjoyment surfing during the winter months before Lake Superior freezes there in Marquette. And he gets out there as often as possible. And if you follow any groups in the UP around Marquette, you'll see pictures and video of him showing up once we get well into the season. People are getting creative with other activities. We have winter bowling. There's that Brunswick connection again. Muskegon, of course, has some folks who have started to set up these outdoor winter bowling lanes. That looks a little bit fun, although I'm sure setting up the lanes, the pins again and again and again might get a little tedious after time. We have a lot of zip lining in Michigan. A lot of the resorts have that, and they offer this in the winter as well. I remember my son doing this at Boyne Highlands a few years ago. There was their winter snow beer festival going on, and I was there for that. And he and a friend actually went zip lining, and I remember them yelling out to me from above as they zip lined over us at the festival site. Also in the Straits of Mackinac area, this is at the Headlands Dark Sky Park. And this is one of the premier areas in Michigan for stargazing. And it is right near Wilderness State Park. And this is the water that you see, that's Lake Michigan. And so you can hike out there. They have a parking lot right there. They have trails that are lit up, and it's open 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. You can't camp out there, but you can go out there. So when there's meteor showers or full moon or any of that kind of stuff, even in the winter, you can go out there, and they do guided hikes and discussions there as well. This is another fun thing. This only happens every now and again, but in Petoskey years ago, they sunk down this crucifix. And it's in the bay near, it's just kind of I guess, northeast of the marina. And it's well down under there. And when the ice freezes up, they will clear a path, and all these people line up to see the cross under the ice, the cross under the water. Now, if you have a boat, you can go see that during the summer months. But they just draw thousands of people wait, and it's usually one day a year, and it's for 4 or 5 hours, and it doesn't happen every year. Now, it happened since I lived up north, so I want to say it was the winter of 2018 was the last time, I think, or maybe 19th. One of those years was the last time it was the ice was thick enough in order for them to be able to do this. But it's a pretty significant kind of little attraction. If you're interested in more information about any of these activities, these are some really great websites to start with. Feel free to take a picture of that screen if you'd like, or I can drop these all in the chat when we wrap up here in a few minutes. But these are the websites for the state of Michigan that provide information about travel and tourism and outdoor recreation, including in the winter. So Travel Michigan, which is the whole Your Trip Begins at Michigan.org. I'm sure many of you have heard those commercials. The Michigan Department of Natural Resources, the West Michigan Tourist Association, which covers 41 counties on the west half of the Lower Peninsula, as well as some parts of the UP. The Upper Peninsula Tourism and Recreation Association, the Great Lakes Winter Trails Council. They actually are the supporters of Winter Trails Day, which is coming up on Saturday, January 8th. We have the Michigan Snowmobile and ORV Association, the Michigan Snow Sports Industry Association. And these groups will give you information, like the Snowmobiles Association will have links to the trails that are around there. I'm going to post a couple images in the chat when we are done from the Great Lakes Winter Trails Council, which lists some of their upcoming events. Those are all non-motorized events. So that is fat tire biking, snowshoeing, cross-country skiing, rafting, other winter activities. So these are going to be places that you really want to visit if you're looking for more information about winter in the state of Michigan. And with that, I thank you for letting me share with you some thoughts on Michigan's winter playground. And I'd love to open it up to comments, questions in the chat or in the Q&A. If you have activities that you enjoy in winter, but I haven't included them, please let me know, because I'd love to dig in more and find more ways for myself to personally enjoy the winter season here in the state.
Thank you so much, Dianna. That was great. And we do have a couple of questions. The first one was about links to the places you talk about. Do you have any sort of handout for the program? Obviously, it would be all virtual, but I didn't know if you still had handouts left over from when you did in-person programs.
Well, let me real quick, I'm gonna grab this. So here are all the links that I just mentioned. So you should be able to copy that from the chat and then add that into, and I like to send myself emails a lot. So I would send that as an email. But those sites would be good starting points for you for that. Let's see. So we do have some snow lovers. That's really good. I also enjoy seeing something other than grass. I actually felt kind of sad we had to go to the Thumb area last Friday, and I felt kind of sad that there wasn't snow there. So how lucky am I to live in the snow belt?
I know someone was asking about the frozen waterfalls and where those were.
So there are over 300 waterfalls in the Upper Peninsula, and a lot of them are along the Pictured Rocks, which are along Lake Superior in the Munising area. So I've been out there, we've snowmobiled out there, we've hiked out there. You can go out to many of those snowmobiles. And if you go to that Upper Peninsula link that I included in the chat, they have the list of where all the waterfalls are. And you can find out which ones are accessible. The ones in the Pictured Rocks area are pretty accessible. And then look up, it's called Ebb and Ice Caves. I'm going to put this in the chat. This is kind of in the center part, which is interesting that it's in the center part of the state, not even on a shoreline. But when we went last year, we had to park and walk a good mile or two into the woods, and you walk through it, and there is some inclination, and you do need to, a walking stick is good, and those clamp-ons that I mentioned. But when we went out there, we walk out and you can walk down behind the waterfalls. We've done that to a couple of them in the UP, and it really is exciting. In fact, the UP is really the only place that you can see those waterfalls in Michigan. I think we have one waterfall in the Lower Peninsula, and I would just call it more of a babbling brook with some drop off versus a true waterfall.
Thank you. And someone asks, what was the brand of those mittens that are super warm?
Oh, Baba Zuzu. Let me grab their website real quick.
I love
it's
that
fun
name.
to say, isn't it? They're a great company. They're based in Leelanau County, and I will put it in the chat just because it is a lot of, but it's kind of funny now that I'm looking at it and reading it. It's like Baba sheep, Baba Zuzu. It's kind of a fun company.
And I have a two-part question, because I realized my description was not as up-to-date as your presentation. Two things piqued my interest from at least your prior versions of this presentation: Zhivago Night and the Motown Winter Blast. Are those still around anymore?
You know what? Zhivago Night turned into the Skiable Feast. So I don't think that they're hosting that one. And I know that Motown Winter Blast was going at certain times. I'm not sure. Let me look real quick. I know we lost some of our major events. Winter Blast weekend was held in 2020, but I don't see that they've announced dates since then.
Yeah.
Sadly, some of the events just didn't survive COVID. Just because there's so much involved in fundraising, but hopefully, hopefully we'll see them come back. It'll take a couple years perhaps, but
And Amy says
hopefully.
the winter blast may happen in Royal Oak this year, possibly due to fundraising issues. Oh, yep,
Oh,
someone
that's
else
great. Moving.
corroborates that. Kathy,
Gotcha.
thank you.
Royal Oak is a great town. I love Royal Oak.
It is. I'm right by there. I'm in Huntington Woods. That's where we go for fun.
Nice. Wonderful.
I think that's all of our questions. Let me just double check on the Q&A. Yep, I think we've answered that one. Great. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Hopefully there'll be a time where we can have you in person, but we're doing the best we can for now. And I appreciate you sharing your time and expertise with us this evening.
Excellent. Well, I am also very much look forward to coming back down in your neck of the woods. I have friends who live in your community, so it's always nice to catch up with them while I'm down that way as well. So let's all look forward to 2022 and the return of in-person activities where we
Indeed.
can all be safe. So thank you. And get out. You know what's great? One thing, even the pandemic, people still get outside. You could still go for a hike, even if in the winter. You know, we did a lot more. We actually spent more time outside since the pandemic. So if it gets a little bit more motivated to enjoy the recreation and the wonders of Michigan, even in the winter, and you know, it's that one little silver lining of dealing with all of this.
Agreed. Well, lots of accolades. Thank you everyone for coming, and happy holidays to you all.
Thank you, Phil. Happy holidays.